Hi everybody, this is the listening assessment lesson for Afro Celt's sound system song release. If you haven't already, have a quick look through your notes in your work booklet just to make sure that you're treating this as if it were an assessment. I will give you some helpful hints for the first two listening questions that we do, but the last one will be you left to your own devices. So for this, you will just need your workbook plus the single-sided sheet. The first one says question 6, paper D, and the back says question 5, paper C. I obviously hole punched it in an illogical order, but hey ho. So the first one that we're going to do is from your work booklet. It's on page 14. Let's have a look at that now. So if we go through the questions here. So the first one, A, describe the background music with which the extract starts and which continues behind the drums, spoken voice and effects. Okay, so this is talking about what's going on behind the drums, spoken voice and effects that come in slightly later. So at the very beginning it's just barely even music, I would sort of think. Have a think about what sound rather than necessarily music you hear. Question B, describe 2 distinctive features which would suggest an African influence in this extract. So it's got to be about what you can hear, and it's got to be related to the African culture that is an influence over this group. Question C, which of the following is the correct rhythm for the main drum loop? So a little tip here is count the number of notes that you hear. So if you look at A, we've got 6 notes. There it is. We've got 6 notes. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so if you work out the number of notes, whether it's 6, 7 or 8, that should help you narrow down which answer you might be going for. Right, question D. A 4-note piano loop begins after the spoken voice. Start at the same time as the female vocal R and complete the last 2 of the 4 notes in the score below using the given rhythm. Okay, so you've been given a C, okay, for 4 beats, and then a G for 2 beats. Then you've got another 2-beat note and a 4-beat note. They are not the notes D. You need to put that note value at the right pitch that you think you can hear. So a little tip for this is the note that you're trying to guess higher, lower, or the same as the previous note, and then try and maybe hum it very, very quietly, because in an exam you'd have to be very, very quiet, but try and work out first off if it's higher, lower, or the same, and then by how many notes in a scale. Question E, describe the use of melody in the sung female vocals. So question D was talking about after the spoken voice. This is the sung female vocals in the last part of this extract. Don't argue amongst yourselves. Make 3 points in your answer. So this is use of melody. So you need to think about, is there any repetition? Have we heard it anywhere before? How is that particular melody sort of structured? What's the overall shape of the melody? Is it ascending, descending? Is it both? Is it mainly stepwise? Is it more disjunct, or think about that? The length of the melody or the length of the notes used, and then what notes or patterns could be used within that particular excerpt. All right. F, this music might be described as a fusion. Explain what this term means. Now, bear in mind that this is worth 2 marks, so you need to make 2 points. It could be within a sentence if you're being very specific. The specific way in which you describe what a fusion is. Okay, so it says you're going to hear this 3 times. So when you're ready, here we go. Okay, here it is for the second time. Okay, here is the music for the last time. Okay, if you want to pause now to get any answers done, feel free. We're now going to move on to the answers. Okay, so the first question, which asks you to describe the background music. So we've got synthesizer sounds, there's a drone in there, wind effects, there's a sort of sweeping filter that pans between the two speakers, which you probably can't hear on this, but any two of those would have given you a mark, a maximum of 2. Again, if there's anything that you want to check with me, do drop me an email or a message on Teams, and I will check answers and give you an opinion. Question B, describe 2 distinctive features which would suggest an African influence in this extract. So we've got the talking drum, which we heard, which is the one that you squeeze and you can change the pitch. which we definitely heard in there. We've got a shaker, and we've got the African language being spoken over the top. So 3 things there. You can have any 2 for 2 marks. Right, question C. The rhythm that is correct is B. So, like I told you, if you counted the number of notes that you heard, that ruled out A and D because they had 8. The reason that it's B is that it's syncopated, whereas C is not. So B is, whereas C is. Okay, that's more straight. So the syncopated one, B, is the one that gets you the mark. Now, question D asks you to complete the last 2 notes with the rhythm that they've given. Okay, so the second minim that you needed was 1 tone lower than the G, so an F. And then the final note was C, which was an octave higher than the first C that we saw. So that was 2 marks there, 1 for each. Question E, describe the use of melody in the sung female vocals in the last part of this excerpt with the words, don't argue among yourselves. Make 3 points in your answer. So you can have any 3 of what you see here. So it's the same melodic phrase. Do, 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 do. And that is a 2-bar phrase. It's sung 4 times. So that's the idea of the repetition there and the structure of the melody itself. It uses 5 different pitches, so could be described almost as pentatonic. It's modal, which we know because we've discussed the fact that this piece uses the Aeolian and Dorian modes. But you could, if you put minor key, they would have accepted it. So any further detail? So if you'd said that on the whole it's a descending phrase, da 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 da, and then it goes back up again, or the pitches that are used, the fact that most of the ends of phrases will finish on the dominant, but the final one finishes on the tonic. Any 3 of those would get you your maximum 3 marks. And then F, this music might be described as fusion. Explain what this term means. So you need to say that it's the merging or joining or fusing, that's 1 mark, of 2 or more musical or cultural styles. That's the 2nd mark. So like I said, you could get the mark in a whole sentence if you are really specific with what you're saying. Okay, so that is the end of the question from your work booklet. You now need to turn to the single sheet, which is the official edXL listening questions. Okay, and the first one says, the first one is paper D, and it's question 6. So it should look like this. Okay, so let's have a look through the questions. So which term, question A, describes the time signature of the extract? So basically, is this piece in compound time or simple time is the question that you need to ask yourself first. Now, simple time is da 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 da, whereas compound time is da 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 da. Okay, we've come across compound time in Queen, but you need to ask yourself, does that have the same feel as this song? And then you need to, after that point, you then need to ask yourself how many beats in a bar. So duple would mean there are 2 beats in a bar, triple is 3 beats, and quadruple is 4 beats. So you need to make up your mind that way round. Okay, question B, which 2 of the following, so remember you need to tick 2 of these, are used in the repeated drum pattern? Put 2 crosses in the 2 correct boxes. So think back to the lesson that I did on rhythm and the example that I played from you, especially the one that we've just heard. So oh, and I've now knocked everything off my desk. Whoops. So 2 things there that you need to put in. Question C. In this extract, Afro Celt sound system fuse Different musical styles. Identify the musical features of the two styles in the table below. All right, so with this, think about the background knowledge that I asked you to have a look at, so the features of these two styles, and try and listen out for anything that you can hear. And so we're looking at Celtic folk music and we're looking at electronic dance music. So you might think about instrumentation, you might think about rhythmic ideas, anything like that would do. Okay, question D, describe two ways that the music builds up. Okay, so when you're thinking about this, you need to really sort of have a think about texture, because that implies music building up. And also with that, the instrumentation that comes with it. So when you're asked to describe something that changes, the easiest thing to think about is what's it like at the beginning, what's it like at the end, and how has it happened? How has it changed? That's the sort of things, the thought process that you need to be going through in this question. Okay, so now that we've gone through that, you're going to hear this 3 times. If you need to pause in between each one, if you want a longer break between each play, then just pause after you've heard each repeat. Here we go. Okay, here it is for the second time. And here it is for the third and final time. Okay, so we'll now move on to the answers for this one. So this piece is in simple quadruple time, which basically means 4/4. Okay, it's da 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 da. Okay, so 4 beats. Simple time meaning 2 quavers, or the beats are divisible by 2. Then, which 2 of the following are used in the repeated drum patterns? We've got syncopation, da ba da ba da ba ba da. So syncopation and a combination of that with dotted notes. Then in question C, Celtic folk music, you could have the use of hurdy-gurdy, the Ilian pipes, or the fiddle. And if you've made any relevant observations as to how they're used, you could do that as well. Electronic dance music, drum break, drum beats, use of samples or loops, the electronic piano or synthesizer, electronic effects on the vocals, electronic effects on the instruments, anything like that. Again, if you have any questions, do drop me a line. And then question D, describe 2 ways that the music builds up. So we've got more samples or loops are added, more instrumental lines are added, the texture becomes busier, and it gradually gets louder, or crescendo in there as well. Again, anything that relates to that is probably going to be correct as long as you've listened to it carefully. And then we're on to the final question. This is question 5 from paper C. So here are the questions, I'll just talk you through them. So again, which rhythm is used on the words "don't argue amongst yourselves"? So with that one, you've got to first decide, well, does it start on the first beat of the bar or the second? That narrows out A or the rest of them. And also how many notes there are. Remember, if a note is tied over the bar line, that's just one note. Question B, you will hear the first verse of the song. Describe the melody of the vocal line. You should refer to 2 of the following: shape, common intervals used, gaps between notes, and the vocal range. These are all things that we've discussed when we looked at melody. Question C, how does the music build up across the extract? Your answer should describe 2 musical features. So again, that's sort of similar to the previous question, but we've got a different extract. Question D, name 2 musical styles that have been combined in this extract and identify a musical feature of each style. So again, the last question might help you on this as well. Here we go, here it is for the first time.
Don't argue amongst yourselves, because of the loss of me. I'm sitting amongst yourselves. Don't think you can see me. Don't argue amongst yourselves, because of the loss of me. Reach out and touch me. Make effort to speak to me. Call out and you'll hear me. Be happy for me.
Okay, here we go for the second time.
Don't argue amongst yourselves, because of the loss of me. I'm sitting amongst yourselves. Don't think you can see me. Don't argue amongst yourselves, because Interesting.
And here we go with the third and final time.
Don't argue amongst yourselves because of the loss of me. I'm sitting amongst yourselves. Don't think you can see me. Don't argue amongst yourselves because of the loss of me. I haven't gone anywhere. Out of my body. Reach out and touch me. Make effort to speak to me. Call out and you'll hear me. Be happy for me. Interesting.
Okay, so let's move on to the answers for this one. So, which rhythm is used on the words "don't argue amongst yourselves" is C. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, da, da. Okay. B. So asks you to comment on describe the melody, picking 2 of shape, common intervals used, or range. So if you picked shape, you could have, there are 4 phrases. The first 3 are the same, and the fourth one is different. So A, 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 B. Descending phrases, like we said before. Phrases start on the offbeat or the second beat of the bar. They are syncopated. Each phrase has the same rhythm apart from the last one. And they are modal. Common intervals used, if you picked that option. It's stepwise or conjunct. Moves mainly in seconds, so next door neighbour notes, whole tones. A fifths between phrases. So at the end, the last note of the phrase and the beginning of the next note, beginning of the next phrase, there's a fifth between them, and there are some thirds. And then range, if you picked range, it's quite a narrow range of a sixth, and it's sort of the low or middle register or tessiture of the voice. Question C. How does the music build up across the extract? Describe 2 musical features. So it gradually gets louder, or a gradual crescendo. More loops or instruments are added. The texture becomes more complex or busier. Try not to say thicker. They don't like that. Drums become more prominent. Ascending phrase in the synth or strings. And there is a change of harmony. And question D. Name 2 musical styles that have been combined in this extract and identify a musical feature of each style. So down the left-hand side there, you could have had Celtic music, rock music, dance music, or West African music. So in the extract, we heard the baron as the Celtic instrument. Remember that this is to do with the extract. You've got to make sure if it says this piece or this extract. If it's this extract, it means what you can hear at the time. So hence why we don't have the hurdy-gurdy and we don't have the idiom pipes. Rock music could be drum kit or the singing style or the vocals. Dance music, use of samples or loops. Synthesized sounds, so sort of artificial sounds. Effects added to the voice and instruments. And if you picked West African music, use of the kora, West African drums like the talking drum or the djembe, and descending melodic phrases. Okay, so we've reached the end of this lesson. Please could you send me pictures of each of the 3 listening questions, having marked them, and then next week's final lesson before we break up for summer will be an extended response preparation lesson with not a lot of me talking, but with you completing a written response for an Afro-Celt extended response question.